Mr. Fouquet, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Good morning.
I can't unfortunately interview in French because you're from France, but I wouldn't get any further than asking for directions, I'm afraid. I read that you interviewed at ASML in 2007 and you studied physics.
Yeah.
You're an engineer.
That's right.
Now, does that mean that at the time you completely understood what it was that ASML did?
No, I think in fact when I joined ASML I had no real background in lithography. So like a lot of people in ASML I had to learn what we do, how we do it. I've been in the company for more than 15 years now, so that's a long time. And my engineering background of course helps to really understand what is happening in the company. And a lot of people sometimes think, it's very complex, very difficult. Well, it's not. And that's why we are capable to bring a lot of people to work with us. And they learn very quickly what lithography is about.
You say it's not, but I beg to differ. I think it's quite complicated. You've brought a few things with you. You've got a telephone, and I've been told that the big disc on the table, that's a wafer.
It's called a wafer. So,
and in the wafer are hundreds of chips?
It's hundreds of chips, and well, you know that, right?
I know this.
This is a phone.
This is a phone.
Everyone
yes.
has a phone.
Yeah.
And what you may also be aware of is that in every of those phones, like in any computer now, in all of our cars, there are those very little things, which I have here, which is called the chips.
Yeah.
Right. And in this case here, this is the A10 chip from Apple. So this is the microprocessor you have in your phone. And this chip is basically what is being used to do all the calculations. So this makes your phone work, and you see how small it is.
Yeah.
And those chips are being made using this wafer. So this is a bit of a fragile piece of hardware, and I will show it to you. I'm not sure if you have seen that before.
I have never seen this before.
If I can get it out. And this is a slice of silicon.
And this is what your machines make?
Well, this is what is used to build the chips.
So
this is where you have hundreds of them.
Yeah.
And in order to make the chips, many tools have to build many layers that are going to be used to create the electronic circuit.
Yeah.
Right? So you have hundreds of layers to create an electronic circuit in 3D. And our machine is very important because this is the machine that prints the pattern you need in order to make this work.
And you're the only company in the world that can do this?
So we are the only company in the world that can make the most advanced lithography machine, the EUV machine. And today those machines are being used for the most advanced application, like AI.
So for lack of a better word, you are a monopolist in your own right. But you just show me this chip. Would it be too much to say that because these chips are in everything, that the world kind of runs on ASML?
Well, I think a lot of people have been saying that, of course.
Are they wrong?
Well, what's important to understand is that if it's only ASML, then you have nothing. So in order to make a chips, yes, you need ASML, and ASML has become indispensable to this process because of EUV. But you'll need a lot of different actors, a lot of different machines.
The rest of all the companies in the chain that ASML...
That's correct. That's correct. Including the company that are going to manufacture those wafers directly. So that's a very large ecosystem.
I see. Well, I just mentioned in my talk that ASML has seen enormous growth in the last few decades. But this week, this happened.
A few minutes ago, and it's not pretty.
DeepSeek, because it is mind-blowing and it is shaking this entire industry to its core.
The US technology stocks have plunged after a chatbot developed in China upended expectations about America's ability to maintain its lead in artificial intelligence.
Yes, now you've managed to get, because ASML lost millions of dollars on stocks as well.
Billions.
Your stocks lost millions, not your billions. Do you get nervous when that happens?
Well, this industry is getting a lot of attention. I think everyone is talking about AI. And the reason for that is because AI is a huge opportunity for society. AI is mostly going to transform the way we live in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
So because it's a huge opportunity, a lot of people will want to play in it.
So would you say that the markets responding the way they did said a lot about how there's a lot of insecurity in the markets?
Well, there's a lot of expectation, but maybe still not a full understanding of what AI is going to do on what AI is about. So people believe today that there is a few players. I think what will happen moving forward is that we will see a lot more players in this industry because this is such a big opportunity. And
so you saw it coming?
I would say we see it coming. I think this is true in this case for the software, right? So DeepSeek is about the algorithm that is being used for AI. I think it's going to be true in the future about the chips themselves, potentially the people who make the chips, etc., etc. So, you know, huge opportunity always call huge competition. So I think for us, for me, this was not a big surprise. I think there will be more of that.
We will see more in the future. You say, DeepSeek says, their claim is basically, we can do more for less money. Do you believe that? Do you believe that they can do more AI with less of your chips?
Well, if you look at the history of the model that are being used for AI, I think people have been trying for years, already for many years, to do more calculation with less chips. This is a way to get, basically, in some way, better performance. This has been going on for many, many years. This whole industry has been driving performance at lower cost. So yes, I believe it. I also believe that a lot of other companies like Meta, Google, you know, anyone in AI is trying to do the same today because this industry will need improvement.
But then it would mean they don't need you.
Well, they need us because you still need the chips. What they are doing is making the algorithm more effective, but they still need all the chips in order to do that. In fact, we believe that the cheaper AI will get, the more application you can develop because we can afford it. Today we can't. And then the more demand for chips you will get. So
more things will be made up, more solutions will be found where we need AI. And so in the end, it's not all bad news for you.
No, it's good news. I think lowering costs has always been good news for this industry and therefore for ASML. This is what we call Moore's Law in this industry.
What is Moore's Law? Can you, are you able to do that really briefly?
Yeah. So, you know, I showed you the chips. More than 60 years ago, Dr. Moore said that every 2 years, you know, he would like to see twice as many transistors per chips, twice as many computing power, indeed, for the same cost. So
and smaller, so smaller.
Smaller. So the size of the chip does not change, but they become more powerful. And the cost doesn't increase too much. And because we follow this law for 60 years, today you can have those very high-performing chips everywhere. If they were at the cost of 40 years ago, this would be impossible. This is, therefore, a good news.
Still within the boundaries of Moore's Law, which is not an official law, but just a prediction he made.
That's correct. That's correct.
We're talking about this international context that ASML operates in, but I've just been discussing the Dutch government. You are based in Brabant, and I know you've lived here for 15 years in a very international company. So I don't know if you learned the Dutch word of stikstof.
Well, that's a very common word, I'm afraid.
Nitrogen prices.
Nitrogen, yes, of course.
Does it limit ASML's expansion in Brabant?
Not today, but I think, you know, we had a lot of discussion, as you know, in the last couple of years about our expansion. I think we have made absolutely clear that we want to expand in the Netherlands because this is where our people are, this is where our knowledge is. So this is for us very, very important to be able to do that. We have the Beethoven Now project, which I think is a very positive development. And nitrogen, access to electricity, those things has to be solved. So that, of course, the expansion become reality. Lemjan
just mentioned that the big question is how much patience you will have. How much patience do you have?
Well, we have time. I think we knew also from day one that this will be a tough discussion. So we have discussion, as you can imagine, on a regular basis with the municipality, with the government, to make sure that it's being solved. So we have some time to address that.
What is some time? Because the Dutch government has invested 2.5 billion, I just mentioned it, in the future of the region, just so that you would not leave. Can you now unequivocally say you will not?
Well, you know, what I've told the Prime Minister Schwab when he came to see us is we want to be here. We do everything to be here. Please don't force us to leave if this was not to be solved. So I think today yes, the likelihood we stay is extremely high. You know, it's a
but
big...
not at all costs.
It's a big political matter, of
Yeah.
course, as I heard again today. But people are working to fix it, and I understand it's a big issue. But we have, I think, enough times for that to be addressed for ASML.
I don't want to pester you, but is that like, what am I looking at? 5 years? 10 years
it's been
patience?
more than that, 2-3 years, I would say.
2 or 3 years.
Yes,
That's the
when
amount
we need
you
to
can
know.
Yeah, because you're looking
sure.
to double your the amount of workers you have in 2030, and they
Right.
need to live somewhere. So it will
Yeah,
be
and what I have
2 years.
explained also to the government is, you know, at some point of time,
Yeah.
we need to prepare, we need to have a very detailed plan. And I cannot go back to the entire industry and say, sorry, we cannot make our machine because we have
Because of
this
stikstof.
nitrogen problem in Netherlands. So I think that's well understood in the
I
government.
think people will understand that, yes. Because ASML is one of the most important companies in the world at the moment. It is, without a doubt, one of the most politically politically charged companies in the world. And it led me to think, are you a politician?
No, I'm not. I'm an engineer.
Okay, what's the difference?
I think the difference is that, you know, for a long time as an engineer, as a technologist, I think as a leader in ASML, to be honest, we thought we don't need to deal with politics because the environment was such that we could operate, we could grow. We had a very open ecosystem. We were capable to do business with everyone. Yeah. In fact, a lot of, I would say, law or a lot of regulation were supporting that. I think I still remember 10 years ago where people were telling us, you have to go to China. Not being in China 10 years ago was a bit strange, right?
It's very different now, isn't it?
This has changed a lot, and I think the company has changed a lot. So we also understand the importance of ASML, and it means that, you know, there are new responsibilities that come with that, and we need to have a very regular dialogue with many governments to make sure that, you know, people understand what we do, why it's important, and what are the boundaries in which we can operate. Yeah,
because according to many analysts, there's a tech war going on between the United States and China. That's basically the clip we just saw. The Americans don't want you exporting your newest machines to China because there's a fear growing, seeing China as the enemy. Valid reasons, some would say. At the same time, you've been trading. ASML has been trading with China for decades. So do you share the same view?
Well, we've been in China for more than 40 years now, so from almost the beginning, and we've developed also a long-term relationship like with any other player in this industry. I think, of course, there's been concern about national security that has been expressed in the US, but also in the Netherlands. You know, that, to be honest, we are good citizens. We don't know, right? But we trust that, you know, those concerns are real, and therefore we understand some of the restrictions.
So you don't make your own analysis on that? You trust the government? We
can't. I think we can. This is our matter where, you know, the amount of information needed we don't have. So we are like any other citizen. We receive, if you want, the legislation. We don't make it.
But you're not really like any other citizen, because not every other citizen has been trading with China for 40 years.
Well, I think a lot of companies did. I think in the Netherlands, in Europe, I think we were in no way the exception. I think maybe the sentiment has changed over time, but I don't think we were an exception. We're an exception today because I would say the sensitivity of the topic.
Yeah, let's see. We have a clip of our own Prime Minister Dick Schoof. He's talking to Bloomberg in Davos.
The Biden administration already pushed very hard, and I expect that the Trump administration is pushed in the same way. But I think it's important that we decide on our own what we will do. We've taken our own export control measures and looking very carefully at what is needed for national security interest and what is needed for the thriving of the tech companies in the Netherlands and ASML in particular.
Yeah, the Dutch government maintains that they make their own decision, but the reality is that we've seen that these export restrictions have expanded over the last few years. If they are expanded further, what would that mean for the profitability of ASML?
Well, so first I think the capability to have the Netherlands, I think Europe, to make their own decision is very important. Because what you see, of course, with the US, with China, I think the Prime Minister was mentioning that most probably the tension is not there to go, it's there to stay. I think one of the things we have discussed is we need to have our own voice. That's a discussion we have with Prime Minister Schroeder.
Do you feel that they have their own voice?
I think it's getting better. I think that the whole topic came a bit by surprise for a lot of people, including ASML, to be honest. I think it's getting better. I'm, I would say, optimistic that with the new environment, this could get also stronger. But the discussion we have had in the Netherlands, but also in Europe, because let's face it, we need, I think, to have a bit of a stronger coalition also there, are going in the right direction. But I think what Prime Minister Schroeder said, that we need to make our own decisions, is critical. We need to know what we want.
He also mentioned the worries for security. And this week, after the Ministerraad, the Council of Ministers, he said again that these measures are in place, in general, to prevent equipment being used for military purposes. Can you confirm that that is indeed the concern?
I think it's part of the concern. I think there's a broader concern. I think this was discussed also this morning. Of course, you know, sometimes it's difficult to make the boundary between politics, economy, etc., etc. Sometimes people in the US say that economy is a matter of national security. So, of course, this makes it a bit blurred.
Yeah.
So I think the discussion has to happen, right, to make sure that only those concerns are being addressed. I think there's been many voices across the world saying, well, let's make sure that this really remains about national security.
Yes, because your predecessor, Peter Wenning, he has said that these restrictions were largely based on ideology rather than data and facts. Do you agree?
Well, I would not, I think, say it this way. I think that's a bit too strong.
How would you say it? Yeah, he's Dutch and you're French.
I think that, again, you know, you see the tension. You see the tension between the US, between China. There are tensions that are related to, I think, military reason, of course, national security. You cannot ignore that.
No, because your chips are in everything.
That's
so they
correct.
Are also in weaponry.
That's correct. So that we cannot ignore. There is also, of course, a major economical race between the two blocs. And that's why, you know, Europe being a third bloc, that's why it's so essential that we have our own voice, because if not, what are we going to do, right? You know, we have to avoid just being in a place where we only try to not upset one side or the other. I think it's very, very important that, you know, we look at our own interest, have our own opinion about what is national security, what is economy, and that Europe, the Netherlands, makes decisions according to that.
Yeah, because it also raises the question, when you talk about national security, you just mentioned, I asked you, are you a politician? He said, no, I'm an engineer. To what extent does an engineer feel responsible to where his inventions end up?
Well, you feel responsible, and I think, you know, it's in fact, one of the reasons a lot of engineers come to work in ASML. It's because they believe that in many ways what we do has a positive impact on society. I told you before, chips are everywhere, right? Any major invention are going to use chips moving forward. In healthcare, in communication, in energy transition, all the things that are so important to our society in a positive way are, of course, going to be using this technology. Now, it's unavoidable that this technology is also used for things that are not as, I would say, inspiring. But that's a bit, you know, the history of technology.
You say it's unavoidable, because that, a few months ago, the Dutch newspaper Trouw uncovered that chips built with older ASML machines ended up on the battlefield in Ukraine, in Russian weaponry. Is that something you can prevent?
Well, I think that we don't make the chips, so, you know, we only make the machines. So
that make the chips,
It's very difficult, but can the world prevent that? I think you look at, you know, you look at chips that most probably are also being used in your fridge. Yeah. That's what you use on this kind of weaponry, is the kind of chips that you use in your oven or in your chips. So it's a lot less powerful than what I was showing before. I think that's a bit unavoidable.
Unavoidable. And it does beg the question, because we started this conversation talking about DeepSeek and AI could basically not exist without ASML. And so much is being said on AI. And we recently interviewed the writer Yuval Noah Harari, maybe you've read his book, and he said, don't summon a power you can't control. Are you confident that AI is a power humanity can control?
Well, I think, you know, it comes every time there is a major invention. The same discussion comes. Are we going to be able to control? Is it going to be a good thing for humanity or a bad thing? I think here is a huge opportunity. And in 99% of the cases, this will be used for positive things. You know, I had this example, I think it's in the Emirates, where AI is already being used looking at, you know, health data from people to be able to detect breast cancer a few years even before you see the first symptom. So this is the kind of things AI will be able to do. Should we fear it? No. Should we do the right thing so that it doesn't get out of control in some cases? I think yes.
Absolutely, yes.
But I think we should also not, once again, especially in Europe, overdo it when it comes to regulation, because this will put us in a place where we move much slower than, you know,
I see.
the US or China.
Mr. Fouquet, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming.
Bedankt voor het kijken. Vond je dit nou een goed gesprek? Vergeet je dan niet te abonneren. Een like of een comment achterlaten kan natuurlijk ook. Oh ja, dit gebeurde er de vorige keer.
Als je die inflatie inderdaad echt naar beneden wil gaan brengen, dan betekent dat je eventjes geld uit de economie moet gaan halen.